is one Pokemon who I've played quite a lot of, and after countless requests, I have decided to make my first Ultimate Guide video. The gameplay guide video is something that has been perfected in this community, but in terms of my best Pokemon, this video will be the first of its kind. Perhaps it's because there are just so many Pokemon in the game, and the most popular creators don't have the time to dive this deep into every single one, or perhaps it's because I am the only one qualified enough to make this video on this particular Pokemon, and the popular creators realize that. Of course I'm kidding. Or am I? Anyway, hello everyone, my name is Husky, and did you know that I am a double Team Flower Trick Meowscarada player? Maybe even the best one. That is not true. Meowscarada was the first Generation 9 Pokemon introduced into Pokemon Unite on December 7th, 2023, coming up on a full year since her debut. There are now 4 Gen 9 Pokemon in the game, but Meow will always hold the title of being the first. This Pokemon's release was perceived to be underpowered, which I personally think is a pattern with how the community views speedsters. Meow was definitely not everyone's favorite release, consistently doing low damage and generally not earning the output that many expected. It wasn't until she got buffed for her Battle Pass, which released on February 27th, 2024, that people started putting some hours in on this thing. But I've been playing her since the beginning. Well, as soon as I could get her for free. I was inspired to jump on the Meow grind by a fellow streamer and close friend of mine, B, also known as Kawaii Goose on Twitch, who was vocal about spamming this Pokemon on release. And they were insane at it from literally day one. They made the complaints about the Pokemon being underpowered look like a skill issue, which I personally still think it was. And I decided that since B made the thing look broken and fun, that I would join in. By January 14th, I had 118 games on Meow with a 53% win rate, and I had earned my green ribbon. Now, many people were making this same grind in the beginning because Meowscarada is actually the most popular Gen 9 Pokemon. At the end of 2023, Meow was leading the popularity polls over Fuecoco by almost 600 votes. It only made sense that many were excited to play her in Unite. But as I foreshadowed earlier, things would get quite broken when she got buffed, launching the Meowscarada meta. Suddenly, even those who weren't on the grind were playing this Pokemon, and it was honestly banned in so many games during her time in the sun. But as all things go in Pokemon Unite, she eventually got nerfed, and the meta spammers could no longer make it work, since it requires skill, and decided to head back to Icicle Spear Glaceon. Now she sports a less than 8% pick rate, and a win rate just below 50%, but it's generally believed that other than her low pick rate, she is pretty balanced. I disagree. This thing's kit is insane. It's built with everything you'd want on a carry Pokemon, pretty much everything except a high HP pool and defense. Its passive is probably one of the best in the game. It has CC, it has movement speed, it has attack speed, it has crit rate, burst, secure, scaling, it's actually insane. But the skill that this thing requires is also pretty insane, especially after the nerfs. Positioning is a big deal, and since it's melee and squishy, it can be a struggle to balance engaging and escaping. Let's go over her moves. Overgrow, the Meow passive, is basically a get-out-of-jail-free card. On a 1-minute cooldown, after it drops below 50% HP, it becomes invisible for 1.5 seconds, invincible for 0.3 seconds, and it gets a 15% damage healing and movement speed buff for 4 seconds. And it used to be even more ridiculous. Leafage and Hone Claws are its early moves, which it doesn't lose until level 6 and 7, respectively. Leafage is the secure move. It throws leaves out in front of it and a cone and does damage and decreases movement speed. Hone Claws increases the attack speed and damage for the next 3 basic attacks. Night Slash and Flower Trick are the moves that Meowscarada learns at level 6. Night Slash marks enemies and allows Meow to shred through them with basic attacks, and Flower Trick marks enemies and generates a burst of damage after it explodes. At level 7, Meowscarada learns either Trailblaze or Double Team. Both are dash moves that increase Meow's movement speed and has a CC component, but Trailblaze is focused on increasing attack speed, and Double Team creates a clone that Meow can switch places with. Finally, the Unite move of Meowscarada, Floral Flourish, allows her to simply walk on them. She deals a ton of damage to enemies near her and reduces move cooldowns. Now, we'll get into detail about some of these moves later, but I will be focusing on only one moveset, Double Team, and Flower Trick. Out of the approximately 500 games of this Pokemon that I have played, probably 90 to 95% of them are Double Trick games. It's not only the objectively better moveset, it's also the more skill-intensive moveset, and that makes me have a bit of an ego about myself, so I refuse to play the other set. Let's jump into it. We're gonna first take a look at Meowscarada's base stats so we can put all the numbers we're going to be talking about in context. Let's look at specific breakpoints. At level 6, when it gets its first move, it has 3,921 HP, 281 attack, and 5% critical hit rate. At level 9, when it gets its Unite move, it has 4,337 HP, 342 attack, and it gets a 10% critical hit rate, which it will remain at for the rest of its scaling. At level 11, when it gets its first move upgrade, it has 4,772 HP, 406 attack, and the 10% critical hit rate that we mentioned before. At level 13, it has 5,398 HP and 498 attack. Level 13 is ideally the minimum level you'd be as Meowscarada at the endgame fight because you can clearly see how much it scales from level 11 to level 13. Finally, at level 15, it has 6,300 HP and a 630 attack. Alright. Keep these numbers in mind. We will revisit some of them, mainly the attack stat. Now, let's talk about the moves in excruciating detail. Flower Trick is learned at level 6, and on Unite DB, it reads as follows. Attach a Flower Bomb to an enemy that lasts up to 5 seconds. This move can be used again to detonate the Flower Bomb at will. When it explodes, it deals damage and additional damage equal to 15% of the target's missing HP. Against wild Pokemon, the additional damage from missing HP is capped at 1,000. If an enemy that has a Flower Bomb attached to them is damaged by Meowscarada, the explosion's area of effect and damage are increased. If the explosion knocks out an enemy player with this move, the move's cooldown is reset. There are a few specific things here that this move does. Let's break it down. A Flower Bomb is thrown at an enemy. When you throw the Flower Bomb, you can aim it. So using your right joystick allows you to select the enemy it should land on as long as it's in range. When it lands on the enemy, a mark appears above them, showing that the Flower Bomb is active. Next, the explosion. After the Flower Bomb is activated a second time, it will explode and deal damage. Not only that, it does missing HP damage, meaning that if the enemy is low health, the Flower Trick explosion will deal more damage to them. This base explosion is calculated as 150% of the attack plus 15 times level -1 plus 400. Now we'll talk about this in depth in a few minutes, but a level 13 Meow with a fully stacked attack weight and the item build that I personally use, we'll talk about it, has 750 attack. Plugging this into the formula, the base explosion of Flower Trick is 1,735 damage. Next, increasing the explosion damage is possible. If the enemy with the Flower Bomb attached to it takes damage, there is a second formula that's used to calculate the damage, and it's a very big difference. For this, it's 240% of attack plus 24 times level -1 plus 640. So our 1735 up there turns into 2,776 damage. That's over 1,000 more damage on the explosion. Not only this, Flower Trick's explosion also has an area effect. So if an enemy with a Flower Bomb attached to it when it's near another enemy explodes, that close enemy will also take damage. Finally, Flower Trick's cooldown is reset if the explosion gets a KO. So utilizing the execute damage is huge for just chaining KOs back to back to back. This move gets upgraded at level 11. The description on Unite DB reads, increases the range of application and an explosion's area effect. Also increases movement speed when planting the seed by 30% for 3 seconds, diminishing by 10% every 1 second. So not only does this increase the range of how far you can launch the Flower Bomb to apply it to an enemy, it also increases the damage area when it explodes. Not only that, it increases movement speed after throwing it, so she can chase enemies down even harder. Alright, let's move on to Double Team. This is a long one. Dash and create an illusory copy in order to befuddle enemies. The clone has the same HP and defenses as Meowscarada, but takes 30% more damage and lasts for 3.3 seconds. If this move is used again, the user swaps places with the illusory copy, dispelling the copy and creating an explosion of petals at both the clone and Meowscarada's positions that deal damage and leave enemies hit unable to act for 0.8 seconds. Enemies may only take damage from one petal explosion. If the clone's HP were to reach 0 before a swap, the same type of petal explosion occurs at the clone's location only. Creating a clone also increases Meowscarada's movement speed by 70% for 3 seconds, diminishing by 10% every 0.5 seconds. Cooldown starts when first used. There's a lot here, so let's break it down. She creates a clone that lasts for 3.3 seconds. It doesn't say this in the description, but the clone will run toward an enemy or wild Pokemon in the area and chase it down. It takes 30% more damage, so it's very easy to destroy it. It also doesn't do any damage. It just kind of follows the enemies. Next, when the clone is destroyed, it deals damage and stuns. So if the enemies attack it, it will explode when it's KO'd. The explosion is calculated using a similar formula to the Flower Trick formulas, but the damage is generally less. It's 142% of attack plus 10 times level -1 plus 470. So using our same example, the damage would be 1,675. Which is still pretty significant. Meowscarada can also switch places with the clone by pressing the move again. If it hits an enemy when it switches, it deals damage and stuns for 0.8 seconds. Finally, casting Double Team increases Meowscarada's movement speed by 70%, so she's a fast girl. This move gets upgraded at level 13, where it reads, increases the duration of the clone to 4.6 seconds and sets the increased damage the clone receives to 20%. So now it lasts longer, and it takes less damage than it did before. Otherwise, it's a pretty simple upgrade. Now let's talk about the Unite move, Floral Flourish. On Unite DB, it reads, move instantly to the designated location, creating a whirlwind around Meowscarada for 3 seconds that continuously deals damage to the enemies every 0.25 seconds up to 13 times. During the blink, Meowscarada is invincible. Then Meowscarada will slowly walk forward with the storm. While using this move, the user cannot use other attacks or change directions without the use of eject button, and the move can be stopped if it is used again. Hits on enemy Pokemon reduce the cooldown of Night Slash and Flower Trick by 1 second per enemy hit. Breaking this down, there's a lot that this does. It can blink to a location, so there's a light dash associated with it, allowing Meow to jump in from a slight distance. This dash makes her invincible, as if she needed more invincibility. It deals damage every 0.25 seconds up to 13 times. There's a formula for this. 70% attack, plus 3 times level -1, plus 187 per tick. Using our example and assuming that an enemy takes all 13 ticks, that is 9,802 damage. That alone can 100 to 0 a level 15 Slowbro. Meowscarada moves forward while using this Unite move, so the area of effect follows her as she walks. It can be repositioned with eject button, which is one of the reasons why eject is so powerful on this Pokemon. Finally, it basically resets move cooldowns. When it hits enemies, it lowers the cooldown of Flower Trick by 1 second per hit. So pretty much if you hit anyone, your Flower Trick will be up after the Unite move is done. Perhaps the most broken of Meowscarada's kit is her passive, so we absolutely cannot move on without talking about it. When the user is at 50% max HP or less, if they would take damage, they instead disappear into leaves, becoming invincible for 0.3 seconds and invisible for 1.5 seconds or until attacking on a 60-second cooldown. This effect also increases the user's movement speed by 15%, damage by 15%, and heals by 15% of the damage dealt for 4 seconds. This thing is insane. Let's go over what it does. Makes her invincible. Makes her invisible, increases movement speed, increases damage, and heals for a percentage of damage dealt. If you can learn to play around the cooldown of Meow's passive, you'll be in a great position to do extremely well in games. Next, we must talk about items and emblems. For emblems, I run 6 brown, 6 white, but you can also run crit if that's what you like. Eject button, in my opinion, is a must for the battle item because it allows you to reposition your Unite move, but I've seen people running X attack and X speed as well. Generally, I find it very telling of how skilled a player is by how affected they are by different item builds. Basically, do you just pick an item build that someone says to pick, or do you understand what each of the items are actually doing? What changes for you when you swap out an item? How can you tell? For me, I've cycled through many builds for Meowscarada, and many Meow players have the builds that they like, so I'll talk about the items that work for her in general, specifically the double trick version, and then I will talk to you about my build and why. Attack weight. Gets extra attack with stats. It scales really well, and those extra bursts are absolutely huge with a good amount of stacks. Charging Charm. The movement speed is good. It also contributes to burst on Flower Tricks or double team explosions. Energy Amp. The ult is really good, and it's on a relatively low cooldown, and having lower cooldowns on moves is generally a good thing, especially because they're already so low. Floatstone. Again, movement speed. If not stacking, I feel like this is a good call for the extra flat attack. Focus Band, because I think this item is always good. Muscle Band. It's not as good on Flower Trick as it is on Night Slash, but generally it's pretty good, since you still tend to auto-attack a good amount. Razor Claw. Move cooldowns are already relatively low, so you're also proccing the slow on this item all the time, allowing Meow to chase and stun more frequently. Scope Lens. It's good because it's a good item. It can be run, but it's definitely better on Night Slash than on Flower Trick. Weakness policy. Meow is always in the middle of a fight, jumping in and out and doing a lot of melee damage. So if you jump in, basic attack with Flower Trick, and then burst it when weakness policy is stacked up, it does a huge amount of burst. I've gone through everything above with different variations of builds, but my favorite is by far Attack Weight, Razor Claw, and Charging Charm. It's my favorite build in the entire game, and in general, if there's a Pokemon that can run it, I'll run it. I think the way it combos with its built-in burst and CC is so good, and I heavily feel the difference if I replace one of these items. So let's talk in more excruciating detail about these. For attack weight, at level 15, without items, Meowscarada has 630 attack. Adding an unstacked attack weight gives her 648 attack, and with 6 sacks, she has 720 attack. At level 9, when she first gets her Unite move with a fully stacked attack weight, she has 432. So basically, the scaling on this is insane, and with an extra 72 attack, it's unreal. Let's take a look at the damage. At level 15 and no attack weight stacks, and also no other items on, the combo of throwing the Flower Trick, basic attacking 3 times, and exploding the Flower Trick does 5,219 damage. Now if we look at this exact same combo with a fully stacked attack weight, it deals 5,664 damage. Over 400 additional damage on that combo, just from attack weight. And that's with no other items. Let's talk about Razor Claw. At level 15, Razor Claw adds 15 attack to Meow's 630, leaving her with 645 flat attack. That's with no other items. So when a level 30 Razor Claw procs, the next basic attack does additional damage equal to 20 plus 50% of the attack stat. So the damage of a 630 attack compared to the damage of a 965 attack. Let's look at the difference. When Razor Claw is not procced, the boosted basic attack does 886 damage with no other items. But after using Flower Trick, that first boosted basic attack after that does 1,247 damage, an increase of 361. Not only that, but it slows the enemy as well, setting you up to complete a full Flower Trick combo without the enemy being able to escape. Finally, the Charging Charm. Like Razor Claw, a level 30 Charging Charm on a level 15 Meow raises her base attack from 630 to 645. Not only does the Charging Charm also give her a flat 120 movement speed, but it also gets a huge burst when the charm is fully charged. How big, you ask? Well, the burst is equal to 40 plus 70% of the attack stat extra. So at level 15, it's bursting with an attack stat of 1,136. Again, we know that a boosted basic attack with 645 attack stat does 886 damage. With the Charging Charm burst, a basic attack is doing 1,403 damage. Now let's look at Flower Trick. Detonating a Flower Trick without the Charging Charm boost does 1,663 damage at level 15. But the boosted Flower Trick does 2,150. Which is an increase of 487. Now let's take a look at this all together. With a fully stacked attack weight, fully charged up Charging Charm, and a Razor Claw to jump in for the next boosted attack, the burst of Flower Trick does 2,380 damage, and the Razor Claw's boosted attack after that does 1,023. A Charging Charm boosted basic when Razor Claw's proc does 2,026 damage. And all this math is just to show that I really feel the difference of not having any one of those items. Those are some big damage numbers and attack stat increases that I've gotten used to while playing this Pokemon, so that's why I find this build specifically to be very good. Again, it's all about how you play and what items you enjoy playing with the most. So along those lines, I want to mention a few of the combos that you should consider when playing. When an enemy that has a Flower Trick attached to it takes additional damage, the damage done when Flower Trick explodes will be increased, as we talked about. So in general, the first combo to learn is throwing the Flower Trick, basic attacking a few times, and then bursting the Flower Trick. As you can see, without basic attacking, the Flower Trick explosion is 1,790. After basic attacking a few times, the move damage total is 3,881. Let's add double team to that. First off, switching places with a double team that's next to an enemy does damage. Here with a fully stacked attack weight, that damage is 1,727. If we add in our Flower Trick combo, like so, we throw our Flower Trick, throw our Double Team, then switch with the clone, basic attack a few times, and burst the Flower Trick, we're doing almost 9,000 damage. For reference, a level 15 Espeon has only about 6,000 HP. Generally, the best combo is to throw the Double Team, throw the Flower Trick, let the Double Team track an opponent, then wait for the optimal time to jump in, add some basic attacks, and burst the Flower Trick for maximum damage. You can add the Unite move to this as well. Throw the Double Team, throw the Flower Trick, jump in with the Double Team for the stun, and throw the Unite move. Moon. By the time the Unite move ends, the Flower Trick can also be exploded. So honestly, I've done so much math that I don't want to do any more math, but let's just say that this would be a lot of damage. Now let's talk about a few setup pieces to consider. First, you have to consider where Meow should be sent. Now, it can be sent to both lane and jungle, but I much prefer it in jungle. Meowscarada learns its moves at 6 and 7, so getting the first power spike is much easier coming from the central area. That being said, it doesn't have the best early gank, and its early secure move, Leafage, is really good for lane. So though I prefer it in jungle, it's pretty good in lane too if you play it aggressively and go for early stacks. As a jungle Meow player, my goal is always to clear jungle, head to path, and look for an opportunity to jump in and either pick up a KO or push them out enough to get an opportunity to throw in a stack or two. If it's a really good gank, you'll get level 6 before your second rotation and then can hang out for a second looking for stacks. But if you don't get level 6 by the time the 850 birds are taken, then just go right back to jungle and go get it. When in draft, it's always best to draft Meow, or any speedster for that matter, toward the end of the draft. And I'm just talking about ideally here, because if you're playing solo, duo, trio, you often don't really get the choice to be able to draft a carry later. The good thing about double trick Meow in draft is even if you draft it early, it's not the most counterable speedster. So let's talk about a few counters to look out for. Other speedsters. Meow is generally tougher to play into things with a ton of mobility that can jump on her. It makes it so that the clone doesn't really affect the ability for another Pokemon to catch her. And I tend to struggle most into things like Zoroark and Darkrai, and least into probably Absol. CC heavy defenders. Meow can do a great job of avoiding CC moves with Double Team, but still, if there are team comps built around a lot of CC, jumping in with Double Team into a CC move is usually immediately detrimental. So try to use Double Team to bait out some of those moves before diving in. Dive all-rounders. They are really difficult to play against, especially because unless you're levels up and have a fully stacked attack weight, Meow can't usually one-shot them before they get their move cooldowns up. So things like Machamp, Zacian, Gyarados, Mimikyu, and Ceruledge, of course. Those are always difficult to go into. That being said, compared to other speedsters, I personally feel like Double Trick Meow is one of the less counterable ones. Like other speedsters, Meow plays best into squishy, immobile Pokemon. This often comes in the form of things like Decidueye, Gardevoir, Espeon, Delphox, Chandelure, as long as you're avoiding their stuns. So we've talked about all the background things, and now it's time to go through a game. But first, let me mention a few gameplay strategies and things to consider when we're actually diving into this match. Meow doesn't always have to do a ton of damage to be super successful. Between 50 and 100k is usually where she ends up, even if she gets a ton of KOs. That being said, Meow is an assassin and should have a lot of KOs in a match. And by a lot, I don't really know if I can put an exact number on it because it depends on the match, but I would say double-digit KOs should be thought of as pretty standard for her. Meow should be Unite moving at least 3 times per match. You're probably doing something wrong if you're only able to use 2 Unite moves. Positioning in teamfights is team-dependent, but positioning outside of teamfights is very solo-dependent. In a teamfight, Meow should be on the outside looking for your team to engage so she can follow up and look for a way in. Outside of team fights, Meow should be looking for outside solo picks. Get in, get KO something squishy, get out. Some speedsters do well in the backline gank. Meow does not. What I mean by this is sometimes your speedster can stand in the enemy central area or walk around the opposite side of the Ray Pit and look to jump on the squishier backliners and make its way back to the front. I'm not saying this can never work on Meow, but it's definitely better to wait for a team engage and play around the double team than try to lead the charge. Take your time with stacks. It's okay. Meow is great at scoring, so she can always peel off and grab a quick tier 2 score if needed. And of course, it's important to follow the ABC. Always be clearing. Jungle. Get jungle a lot. Use Double Team to take damage for you. It can block Icicle Spears. Play around your passive. Make sure you're paying attention to when it's up because a Meow passive can be the difference maker. Usually it is. So when you have a passive available, you can play a little more aggressive. Alright, enough background. Let's talk about some gameplay. Alright, so here I'm going to talk through a couple of games. This game that I played was a not great game that we ended up winning, so I'm going to kind of show you what that looks like. And then the second game that I'm going to show you is a game that I played really well, but the game itself was kind of a nightmare, and I'm going to show you kind of how to come back from behind. But we can see that this is a draft match here. I end up drafting Meowscarada third. It's not a great team comp. I'll just like skip forward a little bit. We end up with this team comp. We have a Lapras, no EXP share, a Trevenant, no EXP share, Goal Getter Decidueye. I actually matched with this Decidueye again in the following game that I also recorded. But we have a double Speedster, which isn't great for Meowscarada, but it's okay. It's just that the Darkrai is also going to need a lot of experience, so that already, you know, concerns me. But they did give me the central area. So let's fast forward a bit to the start of the match. Alright. You see me walking in here. I got my central area. I'm already planning on heading down into this bottom path, so that's why I'm starting down here. I like to go buff, Baltoy, Baltoy, but that's just what I personally prefer. The reason that I want to go to the bot path is I just assume that the Lapras Darkrai lane is going to be stronger than the Owl lane. So that's why I'm doing that. But I'm realizing now they have a Clefairy and a Azumarill, which is not great for me, especially because the Azumarill is about to evolve. But I'm going to come down here, and the first thing I'm going to be doing is looking at my teammates, seeing what levels they are, what they're looking like. And then I see that this hasn't been taken yet, so I look for an opportunity to steal. I get it. I realize I can't go against that Azumarill, and I back up. But my Lapras jumps in. I follow. You know, see kind of how I'm standing towards the back. I see this opportunity to grab this farm, and I'm just going to walk out. I know the Lapras is looking like they're going to go down here, but I can't do anything about that. I'm not going to be better than Azumarill right now. Unfortunately, I didn't get level 6. I go in, my leafage I misclick. I was looking for the farm there to get level 6, but at this point, Azumarill's a little too tanky for me. It depends on your lane matchup. So I'm just going to head back into central area. I'm going to grab my Flower Trick here. And then I'm going to be looking toward the 8-minute birds. I'm seeing now that there is an Owl by themselves in the top path. A Goodra's here to Glaceon, so I'm going to walk in and try to go for a KO. I get it. And then I want to follow up on the Goodra. But there's an Absol here. Goodra heals too much. Absol, I expected to have Pursuit, had Night Slash, I go down. So that's a little bit of a tunnel vision mistake on my part. But generally, I'm looking for those easy picks. You know, get them as low as possible, pop the Flower Trick, get the reset. ABC, always be clearing. Heading back into clear. They've already broken our top pad, so at this point I'm assuming they're staying top, which is why I'm not concerned about bottom, but I'm realizing Azumarill got a double. I'm going to have to try to jump in, but there's too many people there. I noticed that Absol's there. Absol's pretty big, and then Glaceon, so I want to wait for my team. I want to look for Azu here, but there's too many people. So I can't really jump in. I can just poke. This is kind of the difficulty here. You can just kind of poke because there's too much happening. They have a lot of healing. I want to try to follow up on my Lapras, but it's a little too difficult. I do get the Azumarill Unite move out, and at this point I want to back up, but my team's a little bit too deep. Notice how I'm positioning outside the fight generally. It's not going super well. I'm going to let them break there. And I just need to prioritize getting my level 9. But notice how I'm positioning around the fight rather than in it, looking for opportunities to catch somebody out. You saw me jump on the Glaceon. I didn't quite KO them, but I did use that opportunity to jump on them. Decidueye's griefing my jungle. All good. I see all of them heading to the top, and I'm going to go prioritize a stack here. I see them all running through. I have 0 stacks. I hadn't been able to get any, so I'm going to prioritize grabbing a stack, and then I'm going to head to the top path. I assume that my team would not try to defend that tier 1. At the tier 1, I assume that they would stay on the tier 2. They did not. But now this gives me a great opportunity. I pop a big Unite move. There's a lot of them that get caught in it, so they take a ton of damage. Unfortunately, I couldn't jump on the Absol, but they do go down anyway. And this is just a really big fight momentum shift for us. And at this point, my goal is going to be, I want to look for some more stacks. It's just Glaceon up here. Take some farm. I'm going to jump in again, grab them, and I get my second stack. Azumarill might have a Unite move here. Yeah, they go for me. I eject button out. There's no way I can do anything else, and I'm just going to leave. You know, the best thing you could try to do is bait out those Unite moves like that with the clone, but I didn't have that available. I was a little stack build at this point. It's about halfway through the game, and I only have 2 stacks, so just trying to see if I can prioritize grabbing any quick stacks at this point in the match without, you know, being a detriment to my team is going to be the priority. ABC, always be clearing. I want my level 13. And notice my levels as well. We're not doing very good in this match, and I don't have like a ton of KOs. But notice my levels. I'm still prioritizing a high level. Darkrai only just ticked into 10. There are other main carry, and I'm almost level 13. I'm going to start chipping this. Probably shouldn't have done that. Probably should have just jumped into the fight. But notice how I'm walking around. Azumarill's looking for me. I'm going to back out. I'm going to let them go for Darkrai instead. I tried to spam my Unite move. I got stunned out of it. And at this point, I kind of had a bad Unite move. And no eject button to reposition. And I couldn't dodge that Icicle Spear. So not a great play for me. I really should have been... I should have been maybe prioritizing my backline a little bit harder, try to go for the Azumarill and then kind of work through them, but I thought that I could get a big Unite move on that Glaceon. And those are things that you tend to look for with playing Meow. You want to get those big opportunities to jump in and get some of the squishies. That's like the speedster's job. But I am level 13. And, you know, as I said before, 3 Unite moves per game is an absolute minimum. That's probably what I'm going to be ending up with here, because we just weren't doing super well in the match. We're able to catch this Glaceon, and now I say I have 4 points. It's just Clefable down here, and I'm going to immediately look for another staff. I don't even care if I'm going to get this KO. If we get the KO, cool, we got it, but I was just looking for a stack there. Anything to kind of boost my attack at this point in the game. I have 4 stacks, that's going to be fine, that's enough for me, and now we can just kind of position ourselves for the final fight, because that's really our shot. I grabbed some farm, nobody's top, I thought Decidueye was up there. Goodra gets a couple points, but not too big of a deal. I'm looking for the Goodra here. I saw that they were here, and notice how I'm walking, like, by myself. My team's in a weird fight. Meow does great on her own. I can walk around and farm by myself, and I know that I can get out if I need to. So I'm just focusing on farming up a little, being on my own, looking for some vision. But the Darkrai was able to do some cleaning up there. They used a Unite move, unfortunately. But they were able to get some KOs, so they're a high level now. And this is where I mess up. So this is where you can see I jump in, and I could have jumped in for a Unite move, but I just didn't trust that the Lapras would be able to handle it. I left them there, and my only goal at this point is last as long as possible. I grab Azu, and I get the Clefable Unite move. And I want to get Glaceon, but there's a lot of people here, and I misplayed with trying to get the Glaceon. So at this point, it's just Darkrai. Decidueye is coming up. Luckily, they're able to get a KO. Our Decidueye Unite moves from behind the pit into the pit, and by a stroke of luck, they get the red. So we end up winning this game somehow. I pad my damage numbers a little bit, and we end up winning. The main things to kind of take away from this match, I got 7 KOs, so not the best. Darkrai kind of filled that role for me, but I did get some big damage, but that's kind of from the end. A couple things to take here from this match was, generally, weaving in and out of fights, realizing that when you're behind, you need to prioritize your stacks and farming by yourself just to make sure that you're able to fight in that last game fight, and try to play off of your defender's engages. All right, let's look at our second match here. This is a match where we were behind for most of it, and then we kind of figured it out in the end. So I end up drafting Meow early here because I wanted a Meow game. Usually this isn't like the best thing to do this, but especially because they drafted a Gengar. Meow doesn't go super great into a Gengar. Team comp, not particularly good, but whatever. You know, it's solo queue. So I get Central again, and I guess the only other Pokemon that I would recommend for it on this team comp would be that Decidueye. You could see them. they aren't looking too hot. I wanted to go to the top path for my gank, but so that's why I started doing a clear opposite. But I end up realizing that Decidueye is not in the game right now. They must have disconnected or something with them, so I'm going to head into the bottom path. Azumarilla's very low, going to jump in and get a KO. That's going to be huge. I messed up. I went to eject on the Pikachu. I immediately messed up because my basic attack jumped toward the farm because Pika went into the bush. It's just me and Goodra because this Decidueye is not online right now. So I did pick up a KO, which is good, but I know I'm not going to be able to get any stacks. Wasn't expecting the Gengar to be here. He hits the sleep on me, and that's it for me. But I did get a KO, which means I should be able to pretty easily come back, get my level 6, get my 7 before the 8 minutes. So at this point, that's what I'm thinking about. ABC, always be clearing. We lost that bottom pass. There's no reason for me to go back there. And I'm going to work on my 7. I kind of use the Hone Claws to make it a little easier to do some damage to the Flower Trick. Steal that farm away from Azumarill. And now I see that Azu is around, so I'm playing a little safe here. Just going to try to clear this as quick as I can. And they're doing a lot of damage to me, so I got to back out. I could have jumped in on them, but I was a little bit too low, and I didn't want to give up a level 7 KO. Now Goodra's in trouble. Gengar is level 8, so a KO would be huge on him, but notice how I'm making sure I'm positioning properly. My passive wins me this fight. I was invincible for enough time where I could come back and get the Gengar. And I end up grabbing all 3 here, which is huge, allowing me to get a stack. So really playing off of the Flower Trick cooldowns, playing off of my passive. Getting the Gengar there was really big. Waiting out the Gengar's cooldowns and knowing they don't have them anymore. Definitely big. And now I'm looking for stacks. I'm not even focusing on the Azu. I get 3 stacks. Pop the Unite move, if nothing else, to get away, but it ends up working out for me where I end up getting the KO, but I get immediately popped by this Gengar. They just come in with their Unite move. But I got 4 stacks, and at this point I feel like that's not bad. Having the 4 stacks early, you know, without causing too much detriment to my team, especially with an AFK. This Decidueye was AFK, so I'm gonna go farm. Always be clearing. I felt bad that the Goodra was keeping them from level 8, so I'm going to give them that blue buff and head top, but if I could get my Unite move back, that's going to be much better. Gengar has a weird eject button. I'm going to use my clone to block some Icicle Spears and get a stack. This was actually a huge mistake. I was a little too stack-pilled, and there's too many people up here. I shouldn't have even Unite moved. I should have just tried to get away or just went down, but there's too many people up here, and I was so far in the back line, and Meow does not do very good with that. But I did get the slow roll out, so, you know, my team might be able to do something here, but, you know, we still had him a choke at this point. Finally just evolved. And I don't have a Unite move anymore for this defense, so ultimately not a great play by me. Notice where I'm standing. I'm on pad. I'm seeing if it's possible for me to jump in without getting stunned. Pikachu has a thunderstorm popped, and I'm weaving around. I can see that I can grab the Slowbro. They're low enough health. So I quick pop the Flower Trick, I get the reset. Unfortunately, the Gengar is difficult to play into as Meow. They were able to get their reset on me. I go down. And we lose that top pad, which is not great at this point in the match. But I am level 11. I have the upgraded Flower Trick. I know I can play a little aggressive onto the squishies. And I'm going to back out, let them do their thing. Gengar is here. And I'm wondering if I might be able to take them, but I don't want to get caught. So, you know, just really prioritizing playing a little bit, not necessarily safe, but playing smart. Not engaging and jumping into fights you can't win if you can help it. There's 3 people here. I get the Glaceon, I back up. Now Glaceon's out of position. I see if I can catch him. I can't. But now I see the Gengar's down there. I'm going to look for him. Slowbro walks up. He ults my clone, which is absolutely huge. I grab the Gengar. And then again, playing a little bit safer. I see the Azu, I see the Slowbro. I know I'm going to get stunned and slowed. It's just not a good thing to engage into. Double team. I get Azu's Unite move onto the double team, and Inteleon cleans him up. Perfect, right? Like, great play. Machamp jumps in, so I'm able to clean up the Slowbro, and I'm able to grab the Pikachu as well from the Flower Trick reset. And remember, the Flower Trick is dealing percent HP damage, so as the Pokemon is lower health, it's going to do more damage to it. At this point, I'm also noticing Decidueye's level 10. It's not looking good for us. But I am level 13, so even still, we're very behind. We've lost a tier 2 pad. We know that we're about to lose this Reggie, but I'm just about to tick into level 14. I've been clearing my jungle. I'm clearing the farm. I've been getting KOs and using my Unite move. You know, still just making sure I'm not giving up big experience at this point in the match. Now, we gotta take down this Regieleki, but me and Goodra doing it by ourselves might not work because they're pushing bot, so I make the decision here to head bot. I assume Goodra will be fine. I want to grab this Glaceon. I do, but unfortunately Goodra went down, and the Regieleki ends up blocking it. So not great. Azu gets 40 in our base, so it's really not looking good. You can see that we have only 4 people in the match, so we have an AFK. Not great for us, but still picking up the Azu. Pretty good experience. I'm about to get level 15 here. I have a huge attack. I have 5 stacks. I have a lot of KOs. I'm fed right now. Even though we're not doing good, I'm fed. Goodra caps 7 points. So this is a classic solo queue. Now what I'm doing here is my positioning. I want to be behind somebody, but I'm noticing they're ripping this bottom. So I'm going to stand here and see if I can catch anybody coming up. Gengar, luckily, uses their Unite move on Decidueye. So that's huge. I don't have to worry about the Gengar Unite move. And now I'm walking around. Azumarill pops their ult. I mess up and jump into a stun, but I still get the Azu. And now notice, I know I made a mistake here, but I'm going to run around the pit, not come back in from the back, because I'm not going to be able to get out. And I know I can't win right now by myself. So I'm just looking for somebody caught out of position. I find them right here. I pick up the Glaceon. And that's about all I can do until the rest of my team comes back. Luckily, it somehow happened to be enough. Machamp comes in and gets a big double KO. Me picking up the Glaceon was huge to make sure that could happen, and we end up winning this game. We end up getting enough KOs where we can rip Ray. Azu comes in, but we get the score. We get the Ray. You can see Azu walking in. He ends up going down. I secure. We score enough points. I stand on pad for a while, and we end up somehow winning that game. And I didn't do as much damage. But I got 14 KOs in that match. And our Decidueye was even AFK. So there are a couple examples of some Meowscarada matches. We talked about a lot today in this video, so hopefully you were able to get something out of it. It's likely going to be a long one, so if you stuck through it, I really appreciate you. Let me know what type of content you're looking forward to from me in the future, and I will see you all next time. Bye!